Hi, my name is Jonathan Freedman, and with Dr. Stephen Mayers, I am co-editor and compiler and interviewer for this book called Solito, Solita, which means alone, alone, crossing borders with youth refugees from Central America. Today, we're honored to be contributing to the read-a-thon, sponsoring all the books by Voice of Witness, an organization that uplifts the voices of people enduring and overcoming human rights abuses around the world. Our book is focused on the passage of young unaccompanied minors from Central America through Mexico to the United States. And this particular story that I'm going to be reading is a first-person narrative by Danelia Silva. Her name and all the names of the characters in our book, or the people in our book, the real people in our book, are pseudonyms for their own protection. So let me begin. Danelia Silva, age at crossing 25. Ages of her children 3, 5, and 7. Born in El Salvador, in the city of San Salvador. She was interviewed in Tenosique de Pino Suarez, Tabasco, Mexico, in transit. We meet Danelia at La 72 shelter in Tenosique, Mexico, in July of 2016. Danelia had planned to flee from San Salvador to the United States with her 3 small children. A coyote led them across the border into Mexico, but abandoned them at the border in Tenosique, where they made their way to the shelter. It's been a dry week in the area, and apart from some hard, short showers at night, accompanied by loud booms and flashes, there's no rain. On the day of our meeting, the morning heats up quickly, and by 9 it's humid and well above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Danelia is seated in the courtyard at a circular table beneath a thatched umbrella with some fellow migrants, including a young mother from Honduras and a middle-aged farmer from El Salvador. Danelia's young children play on the nearby basketball court in front of colorful murals, and the adults talk about their voyages and the stories of those who had been assaulted and left behind. Danelia's story touches on prevalent themes in the lives of many young women in Central America. Due to economic hardship, her parents were forced to leave her to parent herself and her younger brother. Now, as a mother of 3, Danelia is making her own journey in order to flee life-threatening domestic abuse. Back in El Salvador, Danelia's boyfriend, Carlos, had been physically abusing her. When she sought refuge with family members, he threatened her life and stalked her. He then joined the international criminal gang MS-13. After being in the shelter for 3 days in Tenosique, Danelia is still in considerable shock and expresses her mixed feelings. On the one hand, she feels liberated to be away from her abuser. But on the other hand, she has only reached southern Mexico and has no solid plan to make it to the United States. Her parents live in Austin, Texas. Neither of them has documentation, though her stepfather's cousin is a citizen. They are scared because Carlos has been calling them and threatening their lives, saying that he knows people in Texas who can harm them. They have saved emails and photographs that document the words and actions of the abusive ex-boyfriend. Danelia is examining her options for keeping her family safe. She could apply for asylum in Mexico or at the U.S. border. Or her parents could apply for asylum from Texas and then help Danelia join them through family reunification. Danelia tells her story. He could kill me. Our situation is very difficult. This is just a small piece of the terror I've lived in for almost 4 years. I don't know how to leave with these 3 small children. I ask myself now how I ever gathered the strength to leave that house. But if I hadn't, I don't know if I would still be alive. I was born in San Salvador. When I was 12 years old, my father moved to the United States, and my mother joined him when I was about to turn 15. So, when I was 14, I was living alone with my younger brother. I became his mother in a way. I didn't work. I took care of him. My father sent us money monthly, as much as he could, so that we could survive. When I was almost 18, my parents sent for my brother. He made the trip to the United States with a coyote. So my father, then my mother, and then my brother all made the trip with coyotes. When my parents left, the Maras gangs weren't really there yet. We didn't know about them then. By the time I turned 18, the gang problem had grown and was very visible. I didn't know whether it was the MS-13 or the 18, but then I started learning about them. My father was a soldier. He was forced to join the army. It was a terrible war, but it's probably worse now. I met a guy, a partner in 2009 when I was 18, and I had a daughter with me, Sarah. He really wanted a son, so when he found out that our child was a daughter, he left me. I never heard anything from him after that. About a year later, I met Carlos. For the first year and a half, everything was good. It was perfect. My second daughter, Natalia, was born and everything was still good. And then we had a boy, Javier. So Sarah is 7, Natalia is now 5, and Javier is 3. When our son was born in 2013, Carlos started to change a lot. I don't know if he had other women, but he started to mistreat me. He would hit me, yell at me a lot. He didn't drink. He smoked marijuana, and this made him crazy. He would insult me, say many things to me. He would smoke marijuana in front of the children and say vulgar things to his friends in front of them. And because children copy their parents and imitate their habits, they started to say bad words and learn bad things that children don't need to learn. While I was with him, he wouldn't allow me to talk with anyone. When he and I were a group of people, I would stand with a group of people. I would just stand there trembling. He wouldn't let me say anything. He told me that he was the man and I was the woman, so it wasn't my place to speak. I was especially not allowed to speak with men. If a man spoke to me, that would be a beating for me. This happened for me for about 3 years. Carlos mistreated me. Excuse me. I endured all this for my children. They saw all this. When Sarah would play, she'd start to pull the doll's hair. She was very violent until we left that house. She's changed a lot now. She used to fight with her friends. She was very aggressive. Now that we've left the house, she's not like that anymore. It's been 16 days since we left, and she's changed completely. It's better that my youngest doesn't remember this. After the first year of assaults, it wasn't just one punch. It wasn't just one insult. It was more violent. Carlos grabbed me, threw me to the floor, and kicked me over and over. He hit me a lot. One time he grabbed a baseball bat and hit me. He hit my entire right side with it. Sometimes when it's cool or cold out, my feet hurt so badly that I can't walk. At this point, Carlos became a gangster and continued to abuse me. He chose this. I'd had it. I couldn't do this anymore, so I prepared to leave. I just took my children, dressed, and left the house without anything. It was one morning about 10. I have a scar from when he threw a chair at me. I also have pains in my elbow. It was very difficult at that point. It was too much. And I started to realize that the way he was hitting me in the head with his hands, he could kill me. That was when I left, grabbed my kids, and went to stay at a girlfriend's house. On that same night, I called my mother in the United States and cried, "Mama, I can't stay with him anymore. I don't want to be in this country." And then at that exact moment when I told her that I didn't want to be there, he called me. He asked me where I was, because this was the first night that I had slept away from the house. He asked me, "Where are you? If you've left me, then go alone, but leave the children with me." I told him no, they were my children. They'd always slept with me. I'd always taken care of them. He told me, "Well, then I'm going to look for you everywhere if I have to." He was thinking that I'd perhaps gone to another district, another state. I told him that I was leaving and that he wouldn't see the children again. He replied, "Yes, I'm going to see them because I'm going to look for you. And when I find you, I'm going to kill you. You've taken the children without my permission, and you're going to do what I say." I tried to look for other places to live, but he always found me. He told me, "I'll come to wherever you are living, whether you like it or not." I even went to places pretty far from where we were living, thinking that maybe he wouldn't look for me, wouldn't find me, but he always did. He'd break down doors and come through the windows, or if not, from the roof, up the fire escape. This happened many times. Afterwards, he'd ask me why I left, and he'd hit me, insult me. And sometimes I had no choice but return to him. Sometimes we'd even have, I can't even call them sexual relations. This was rape, because I really didn't want anything to do with him at that point. This happened many times, and I didn't want it. I just wanted to take care of my kids, leave him forever. The last time I left, it was late June. I said I was going out, and I told him to give me some of the money that my mother had sent for me and my children. He gave me some money, said that I could go, but I'd have to leave the boy there with him. I left and went to my aunt's house with the two girls. He felt it, that I'd be leaving. I was at my aunt's house for quite a while, but I was going to return home since I couldn't leave my son. His sister, who also had a son, ended up taking my son out with her. Right when I was about to leave, his sister arrived with my son and her son. This was the moment we left El Salvador. God had arranged everything so that I could leave. You have no idea how I started to cry when I saw all of my children there without Carlos. I'd been thinking that I'd have to leave with only the girls and leave my son behind, because otherwise I'd be in that situation forever. When I saw that my son had arrived with Carlos's sister and her son, you can't imagine. They were all there. It felt so beautiful. She asked me if I was going home. I told her that I had an errand to run. She asked me if I wanted to look after the kids while I went out, and I told her that I'd take them with me. I left. I left everything there, my television, my bed, my clothes, everything. I left with what I had brought with me, nothing more. We only had one change of clothes. As we traveled, sometimes we would clean them in the street or in a church. He was going to kill me. We took the bus from San Salvador to the border with Guatemala. My mother was sending me $50, $100 from time to time, transferring money to me online. It's really difficult to arrive in a country and not know the currency. In Guatemala, the currency is the quetzal. I didn't know how much $10 were worth in quetzales. In El Salvador, we use the US dollar. There, a bottle of water costs 15 cents, at most a quarter. In Guatemala, a bottle costs 5 quetzales. Some people would charge me 20, and I never knew what it was really worth. Here they have charged me $2 for a bottle of water. We travelers like to have cellular phones in order to communicate with family and friends to see how they are doing back in El Salvador. You have to buy a SIM card. For me, it costs at least 80 pesos, 30 for the SIM, and 50 for the charger. I've heard some say that it costs them 100, even 160. One Honduran couple even told me that they were charged 200 pesos. They charge us what they want because they know that we don't know the actual value. We had to pay $150 so that the Guatemalan Border Patrol would let us cross the river. My mother has a friend from the United States with family in Guatemala. They helped me, and we went to their house. The idea at that point was to be out of Salvador because Carlos was looking for me. He sent my mother messages on Facebook telling her that he was after me and that when he found me, he was going to kill me. I was in Guatemala for 7 days. In Guatemala, we stayed in hotels. Only when we met the woman who was a relative of my mother's friend did we stay in a house. I didn't have to worry about paying for another hotel. At that point, my mother said that she was going to try to find me a coyote to take me up to where they live in Texas. They found one, but unfortunately, he only took me here to the ADO station in Tenosique. My parents had paid him the initial payment at that point, $4,000 US. It would have been $14,000 for the entire trip. He had taken us with him in Guatemala in La Ruidosa, Izabal. The coyote was from Honduras. He was probably 35. He was friendly when he spoke with my mother. He told me that he was a Christian. Told her that he was a Christian. He also told my sister on the phone things about Christ. My mom would say things like, "God bless you," to him. But in reality, from the time we met him, he was never like that. When we first met, he said to me, "Oye, tú!" And the way he said it, it didn't sound like a Christian. I told my mom he's not a Christian. When we got to El Cebu, he went out and never came back until the morning. He would disappear. When we got to the border here in Mexico, he arrived without his suitcase. I asked him, "Where's your suitcase?" And he told me, "Well, I always leave it there in the hotel." I asked him why, and he said, "Up here, it makes me stand out." He would just walk around with his dark sunglasses on and wear the same clothes. At that point, I started thinking that it was very strange that he had left his bag. I felt confused. Since we met the coyote and started the trip, he never stayed at the places we did. He would just leave us at a hotel, get a room for us and another for him, and then return in the morning. I would never hear him in his room. He would always go out. I'd rise at 4, 5, 6 in the morning, eager to get going, and I would hear him just getting back. And I began to worry that he might abandon us along the way. This happens a lot with coyotes. When we passed El Cebu, we were in a van and the coyote paid the driver some money to pay off the police. He told me that even though there were police stops, we would always pass through them because you just have to give them some pesos and they would let you go. They all work like this. Through all of Guatemala, he would pay them and we would pass. Even the border patrol between El Salvador and Guatemala, we just paid them off and passed through. It was a bit dangerous at the border because there are lots of rocks in the river. People get scraped up on the rocks. Sometimes they can't hold themselves up and they fall into the currents. An older man was helping me cross, and another woman was helping my son in carrying my bag. The current was strong and the rocks hurt a lot, but you have to do it because you can't cross in your shoes. This was the most difficult part of crossing that border. From there, he took us up here to a hotel called Luz de Luna in Tenosique. The next day at 6 in the morning, he knocked on the door to our room and said, get up, now. We are going now. We are not going to travel together. You guys are going on one ADO bus, and I'm going on another one, he told me. You are going to get a taxi and tell them to take you to the ADO station. I'll meet you there. We got to the terminal at almost 7 and began to wait for him. It became 8, then 9, the hours passing, and no sign of him. I had a phone that I had brought from El Salvador, but I didn't have a Mexican SIM card. I didn't have any contacts, nothing. Pretty soon it was 1 in the afternoon and we hadn't even eaten breakfast. My children were asking me for water. When he left us at the bus station, I thought he would arrive quickly, but I guess he had all this planned out to get rid of us. Easy money. We were in the terminal the entire night, and at 9 the next morning, the Mexican immigration police arrived. The woman who ran a restaurant there, she had noticed that I was a migrant. She told me, come in here. They're going to come take you. Come inside so they won't see you. She helped me, brought me inside, and she asked me, you've been here since yesterday, right? I told her yes. She asked me what had happened, and I told her that we had been traveling with a coyote, but he had left us there. I said, I don't know where he went. At 1 in the afternoon, I asked her if I could borrow her phone to make a call to my mother. I called her and told her what was happening. She then called the coyote, but he didn't answer. He also didn't answer on Facebook or on WhatsApp. The woman running the restaurant really helped us. She noticed that we hadn't had breakfast or lunch. It was almost 4 in the afternoon on the second day. The children were hungry, dirty, sweating from the heat, and anxious because they'd been sitting all day. I asked the woman at the restaurant if she could loan me some money because I didn't have anything. And she said, sure, and sent me to a little motel near the bus station. She loaned me 100 pesos. She also told me about the migrant shelter here in Tenosique. And I told her no. I was scared that they would perhaps send me back. I didn't know. The next day, she urged me again to go to the migrant shelter. My mother told me that day that she was going to contact some family members in Veracruz and ask them if they could come for us. We were in the streets for 3 days. The place we were staying would only have us at night. We couldn't stay there during the day. I didn't know what to do during the day. I visited the woman at the restaurant and told her that I was thinking about going back, and she finally convinced me to go to La 72 shelter. I didn't know what it would be like, but thank God they have helped us a lot. I've spoken with the psychologist and the doctor here and told them about everything that I lived through. I know that I'm not a perfect person or a super person, but I want the best for my children. This is the most important thing for me. I don't want to know anything about Carlos. The children are really calm now. I think that when people need something, they sometimes leave and then they can get picked up by police outside the shelter. Here inside the shelter, the immigration police don't enter. They don't have permission. But you can imagine how we all feel here knowing that they are looking for us. Thank God nothing really bad has happened. I would die if anything happened to these children. I can free myself from Carlos, though I won't feel free. I won't feel free until I'm further north. Even though I'm here, I can still feel fear that he might come looking for me. Until I left, I kept this all to myself, everything. Before I left, I had never told my mother what was happening. I knew that my mother and father would feel bad. My father suffers from diabetes. I thought to myself, why make them feel bad if they can't do anything? And if they return to El Salvador for me, it would be worse because there's no work there. I kept it all inside. But when I left El Salvador, I told my parents everything. They didn't believe me. It really startled them. They told me it was better that I try to come live with them. And I understand that even though they are working, it's not like they have a lot of money. They gave $4,000 to this coyote. This was a huge loss. They're really tight on money. They had to borrow that money. The children are really calm now, really calm. They know that we're on our way to stay with their grandparents. They sometimes say, Mommy, we're never going to make it to our grandparents. They've never even met their grandparents. They've seen photos and videos and talked on the phone with them. My eldest daughter looks like my mom. Sarah is calm now because she doesn't see Carlos anymore. The whole problem was seeing him. He'd just show up and start hitting me for no reason at all. Leaving was the best step I've ever taken in my life. My oldest daughter would cry and say, Mommy, let's go, let's go. I don't want to see him again. He wasn't a father to them either. Mommy, she'd tell me, he just hit you, let's go. I overheard someone here talking about how there were gangsters here in the shelter, and for a moment, I thought he might be here. My birthday is in July, this month. I'll be 26. I want to be with my parents on my birthday. We are going to travel quickly. In 7 or 8 days, we'll be there. I hope it's my first peaceful birthday. My mother's family in Veracruz works a lot and can't come right away, but we are waiting for a day off from work for them to pick us up. They'll come get us in a car. We'll stay in Veracruz, Mexico with my parents' friends until my parents are able to save a bit more money for our trip. Supposedly, these very people know someone, so although I'm a bit scared because of what happened with this last coyote, I think it's our only option. From what I've been hearing, I just need to get to the U.S. border and turn myself in. With written proof of Carlos's threats against my life on Facebook and in emails, and with my 3 children, I think they will let me stay. So that is my plan, to arrive at the U.S. Immigration Services. We're treated very nicely here at La 72. There are many mothers here, and many of us travel alone with children. The staff treats us very well and helps us, even playing with the children. They show movies for the children too sometimes. I'm excited to get to my parents, to spend time with my kids and celebrate my 26th birthday. My only dream is to see my children grow up into adulthood. I'd like to be able to give them, not everything, you can't give them everything exactly, but at least give them what they need. This is my dream for the future, to see them move forward, to be able to move forward. I want to live with my parents. Sometimes people say, I'm tired of living with my parents. But I feel that after being away from them for so long, I just want to be with them. Sometimes kids say, I want to be older, to leave home, do what I want. But imagine to reach an extreme where you can't imagine a better place to be than with your parents. I want to feel safe. My father never laid a hand on me. He never hit me. For me to get to a point where I was getting punched and kicked by someone who supposedly loved me, someone whom I have a child with, this someone who was supposed to be protecting me was trying to kill me. He made me feel like I wasn't worth anything. After a few more weeks in Tenerife, family members picked up Danelia and the children to stay with them in Veracruz, Mexico. Carlos sent text messages to Danelia's father and referred to himself as the devil saying that he was very powerful. He also said he knew their address because before Danelia had left, her parents would send money for their daughter in envelopes bearing their return address, which Carlos would steal. In November of 2016, within 5 months of our first interview, Danelia successfully arrived in the U.S. border, where she turned herself over to Customs and Border Protection and applied for asylum. A week later, with the help of a local priest who agreed to officially receive her from the Border Patrol, since her parents are undocumented, she reunited with them in Texas, and she began working at a tile company while her children attend school. Carlos is in prison in El Salvador and has not contacted Danelia's family since she arrived in the United States. Danelia is planning on filing an asylum case in the United States using the death threats that Carlos has sent her in emails as written evidence of the danger she faces in El Salvador. Thank you very much for listening. Our book, Solito, Solita, Crossing Borders with Youth Refugees, Crossing Borders with Youth Refugees from Central America, is on sale at most online book sellers, and it's a really great book. And you can get it from Voice of Witness, 50% off, if you connect with this email, with this link. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.